Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 12 months of leadership under pressure. We are so excited that you're here. We're just going to get settled and get started. So feel free to buckle in, take your seat, and we have a really fantastic session here for you today. Wonderful. So, my name is Celine Krizan. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship here at the University of Buffalo and a dear friend of CLOE. And today's session is going to be fantastic. So, we're really thrilled to have you here and to be able to do this session with you. And we have a fantastic speaker where we're talking about leadership under pressure with Ryan Dunlap. Ryan is the founder and CEO of Conflictish, and he's an executive coach and former hostage negotiator. He helps leaders solve problems with confidence, build trust, and influence outcomes under pressure. Ryan is a really fantastic friend of the program. And we're going to hand it off to him in just a moment. But just a reminder, our 12 months of leadership sessions are led by and supported by the Center for Leadership and Organizational Effectiveness. You'll see me in the chat. You'll see Naomi from the incredible CLOE team in the chat. So if you have anything that you need, feel free to shoot us a message throughout the session. Additionally, you'll see in this lower right-hand corner, there's a nice Q&A box. So if you have any questions for Ryan throughout our session together, feel free to just drop it in that chat. And in the final few moments that we have, we'll be able to pull it up and be able to have a nice chat and conversation with Ryan. So before we dive in, Ryan, thanks so much for being here and joining us today. I'm going to pull you up. I'm going to spotlight you for everybody. But go ahead, Ryan. You have the floor. Thanks for doing this.
Okay, great. So I know one of the things we had talked about before. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Wanted to try to pass it to my colleague, Marcia King, and I'm not sure if we're able to do that. So I wanted to take a moment at the very beginning of this to let you all know my connection to UB and why this is really important to me and to the team, the CLOE team. One of the things that I've had the pleasure of doing for the last 2 years is teaching in UB's leadership coaching certification program with my dear friend, colleague, and mentor, Dr. Marcia King. And this is a program that is one of those things where if you've ever said, man, I really want to learn how to empower, equip, and deploy other people into leadership as a coach, whether you're internal to your organization or external, UB has a fantastic program with some subject matter experts who are absolutely divine at helping you do just that. And so one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is that everything that I'm sharing with you today in this webinar is just a snapshot, just a micro shot of what you would get in the certification program here at UB. And there are a number of information sessions coming up that will be led by my colleague Marcia King, that where you can learn more information about this. This is a multi-month long program. And here I want to make this distinction. When you're in this program, we're not teaching something for the sake of here's a credential to put it into your name. There are a lot of places to go and get some really cheap education and call yourself a coach. But this is different. There's an academic approach, there's a theoretical approach, but there's practical frameworks that allow you to come into the program from day one, build your coaching knowledge and acumen, and actually help people get from where they are to where they need to be, whether you're, again, internal or external to your organization. So I'm going to plug this again at the end. It'll be attached to the deck. We'll talk about it. But I want you to know going into it that this kind of teaching right here, if you like this is the same kind of information you're going to get on the back end of this coaching program. And we'd love to have you in it if it's something you've been considering. We'd love to have you. So listen, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my slides real quick. One of the things I'll tell you all about myself is that among other things in life, I've worn a lot of hats. But among other things, one of the things that I've had the pleasure of doing is being a pastor. And so there we go. I share that because as a pastor, I love to talk. And talking is one of those things where I could talk for 3 hours and pass a bucket, but I don't get to do that here. And so what I'm telling you is the presentation that I have for you is probably not going to be something where we get to go through every piece of what we've put together. But I think it's going to be something you're going to get a lot of value out of. And I'm more than happy to share more with you as time goes on. Okay, so you all should be able to see my screen here. I can't see the chat, but I'm going to assume that you guys can see it. And we're going to jump into this topic here of leadership under pressure, turning conflict into your greatest competitive advantage. And if for whatever reason this doesn't work out, I'll just get a message from someone. Just let me know, hey, we can't see the slides. Okay, slides look good. Perfect. Let's keep going. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but I'll tell you my background is a little unique in this space. I spent a lot of time navigating difficult conversations with people. And one of the cool things about me that a lot of people tend to point out is that I'm a former hostage negotiator, former special victims detective, all the things. But I also spent 8 years of ministry as an executive pastor at various levels. And I'm the former executive director of an anti-human trafficking organization. All that to say, I've spent the better part of two decades learning how to have difficult conversations with people, navigating high pressure moments. And so, what I'm going to be doing with you all today is kind of giving you a snapshot of some things that we do or did, I don't do it anymore, but did as hostage negotiators to maintain our cool, calm, collected selves under pressure. And so, we're going to do that jumping right in here. I see my colleague Marsha just jumped in. Marsha, we talked about the program here in a second, and we'll give you the floor back at the end. Hopefully, we can spare some time and get you back in from that. So, listen, one of the questions you guys might be asking yourself is, what can a hostage negotiator teach me about conflict and pressure management? How does it translate to the work that I do in various different spaces? Well, there are a lot of lessons that can be learned. And while I would love to sit down with you all and teach you all of these things, what we really are going to focus on today is emotional regulation and response control. That's really what we're talking about when we talk about leading effectively under pressure. And so today's session focus, here's the question I want you to think about. I want you to think about how are you most likely going to harm someone in your care? Now, if you've heard me share or speak anytime before, you're probably tired of this example story. I'm not going to go into all the details about it, but I will share some context here. My journey to becoming a hostage negotiator was not clear and smooth. In fact, I never wanted to be a hostage negotiator. What I really wanted to do was be a tactical operator. I wanted the guns and the gear. I wanted to be like a G.I. Joe. And unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to do that because I had a supervisor who believed in me. I know that sounds weird, but what happened was I applied to be a SWAT operator, and a supervisor pulled me aside and said, Ryan, love you. Something I think you ought to consider, though, is being a SWAT hostage negotiator. You're a fantastic communicator. I think you're going to be great at doing that. And while I initially declined that opportunity, I did think through it. And I had a chance encounter with a group of hostage negotiators some time later. And during my chance encounter with these negotiators, I asked them, hey, what does it take to do your job? And one of the negotiators very kindly pulled me aside and said, if you want to know what it takes to be a hostage negotiator, I want you to answer this question. And he asked me, how are you most likely going to get someone killed? And it's a very powerful question, and it wasn't one that I expected. But essentially, he wanted me to know that I had potential, that depending on how I showed up when things are blowing up around me, I could go into a situation as a negotiator and make things significantly better or significantly worse. And so I needed to know what about me was going to get someone else hurt, whether that was an innocent victim, another negotiator, or an innocent officer, something like that. And so I borrowed that for years. And today, as an executive coach, one of the number one questions I ask the people I'm coaching is, how are you most likely going to harm someone in your care? I've taken that question and flipped it a little bit. Because the thing about it is, leaders today have to recognize how pressure can distort their intentions and affect their communication and unintentionally harm the people that they are responsible for. Because we can show up in high pressure situations and do things that we later regret and unintentionally harm people. So we have to know about this, that caring for people isn't enough. We have to examine our default responses that surface when tension rises, because we may have good intentions in a high pressure moment and do all of the wrong things and cause a lot of collateral damage. So we want to gain some tools to help us build our self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-control under pressure. And hopefully I can do that today. Let me help you understand the problem here. The challenge that we're faced with when it comes to high pressure leadership is that it is costly. And maybe you've experienced some of these costs at some level in your leadership journey. I can tell you that $359 billion a year in lost revenue is the financial toll of conflict. And that is an old number. I venture to say it's probably significantly higher than that now. We also know that some research showed there was a longitudinal study that was done some years ago by a team run by a gentleman named Ron Carucci, showed that after about 18 months of leadership, most first-time high-level executive leaders are out of work. They're out of their job. They fail in high pressure moments, 18 months on average. And this was thousands of people who were studied over about a 10-year period of time. We know that 25 to 40% of our time as leaders is spent navigating conflict. 89% of us avoid conflict. 70% of employees expect leaders to navigate high pressure problems. The numbers and the statistics go on and on. So what we need to understand here is that conflict is a problem. And I like to say it this way: leadership is conflict management, or said simply, leadership is problem solving. And leaders often fail to recognize that they are behind most of their organization's problems. And unfortunately, leaders who can't solve problems become their organization's biggest problem. So, what we're going to work through here is, get my slides going. There we go. Is figuring out what we can do about it. So, let's talk about conflict real quick. What is it? Well, it's a clash of competing needs, values, beliefs, ideas, or expectations. Now, if we had more time, I'd spend 2 hours alone just talking about the information on this slide. But here's what I want you to understand. Generally speaking, conflict is multidimensional, multi-layered, and multidisciplinary approach. So there are different types of conflict. There's different depth, intensity, resolution paths for conflict. It ranges from intrapersonal, which is inside of yourself, interpersonal conflict with others, intergroup conflict within your circles, and then intergroup conflict with other circles becomes tribal. We also have to recognize that it borrows from so many different social sciences. So it's really hard to be good at conflict if you don't understand psychology, sociology, anthropology, ecology, if you don't understand things like kinesthetic information, body language, proxemics and proximity, chronemics, and time. All of these things you really need to understand. Conflict management, in many ways, is neuroscience. And that's why it's so difficult. It's why most of us can identify conflict, but we can't resolve it. And so what happens is conflict exists in this escalated form like this. This is typically how we experience conflict. It escalates. And it goes from this interpersonal space where we've got these internal challenges where maybe there's competing values within ourselves. There's interpersonal conflict where now that tension is no longer just between us, it's between us and other people. Then it becomes intergroup. So our friend groups, our circles, our common circles, there's infighting. But then it becomes polarized and it becomes our group versus that group, and it just spills out. So this is typically the escalation of conflict that we experience. And maybe you've experienced this within your organization. So you can identify different levels of conflict here. Conflict you've carried, conflict you've had with a peer, conflict you've had with another team, conflict you've had organization wide. So I took some time to create this, and I just wanted you to kind of get an idea of what an integrated conflict map could look like when you're taking all of these different factors and you're using it to try to say, man, what's the most appropriate way to respond during conflict? And again, time is the enemy here for this conversation. This is very, very complex, and I understand I'm brushing over this. This would be something in a long-term certification program on conflict you guys could come back and get with me in the future. But I do want you to kind of see this and understand this from my perspective. When you plot different types of conflict, right? What we're looking at here is understanding the depth of conflict on the bottom axis. So it can go from surface level all the way to deep psychological conflict. On the vertical axis, you can address conflict, resolve it, manage it, de-escalate it, or just protect yourself. And so as conflict becomes more intense, our approach, our resolution strategy has to change. And what we can see here, based on the coded data, is that there are different forms of conflict that exist and different various levels of intensity. That's what the different colors represent. So green would be a lower intensity form of conflict, while the darker red would be a higher intensity form of conflict. And what I ask you to pay attention to is the resolution line where it says resolve. You'll see there are two plot points for low self-esteem. This is an example of the difference between someone has low self-esteem because of maybe poor performance, which is something that they would probably be able to navigate on their own pretty well, versus someone who has low self-esteem, low self-efficacy, low self-love, or whatever, tied to a psychological issue. Right. So inside of the green box are problems that we can typically work on our own, generally speaking. And outside of that green box becomes conflict that we would need to bring an outside mediator in, or another voice, or someone like a coach to kind of help navigate, a therapist, a counselor, what have you. Okay. So again, just an example, high level, all hypothetical, but just an understanding, a visualization of conflict. So here's what we talk about pressure, right? There is an inverse relationship between conflict and pressure. So the more complex the conflict becomes, the less control we have over it because the pressure we experience changes. And this is where the whole leadership under pressure idea comes from. So at the lowest level of conflict, intrapersonal, we have personal pressure. But this is self-honesty, clarity, and the courage to confront internal contradictions, right? If I can get over this hump, I solve a lot of problems. But what tends to happen is, as I showed you guys in a previous slide, 89% of the time we don't address conflict. We let it escalate. And so the pressure also escalates. And so we'll have a relational pressure issue. And this is now requiring us to emotionally regulate, be a little vulnerable. We have to communicate. And if we don't do well there, it becomes an intergroup issue and we experience social pressure. Now we've got to coordinate outcomes. We got to have the courage to speak up and enforce peer accountability. And then there's tribal pressure, dialogue across boundaries, and systemic repair and collective will. So look at this at a personal level. Maybe you've got personal convictions about politics, but then you bump heads with someone else on a relational level who sees things differently than you do, right? And then at the social level, you find yourself within your groups and saying, hey, maybe we're all Republicans or we're all Democrats, but we don't necessarily get along on these particular issues. Well, then you have tribal issues, tribal pressure, where it's Democrats versus Republicans or conservatives versus progressives and yada, yada, yada. You can kind of see how conflict escalates. And the higher it goes, the less individual control you have. And that's an important factor, right? Because you have to recognize that if you can navigate conflict and pressure at its lowest level, you have the highest probability of success. But there are some challenges you're going to face. Pressure reveals character, it alters performance, and it distorts reason. So who you really are will be revealed under pressure. We love to wear masks, but usually under pressure, those masks get ripped off and the side of ourselves that we try to hide emerge. Our performance decreases under pressure. The things that we know better to do, we may not do. We know that we should listen, give other people an opportunity to speak and be heard, but under pressure, we may yell, scream, shout, and cuss people out. Distorted reasoning means we may do the things that we later regret because in the moment we might make poor decisions under pressure to alleviate temporary discomfort without consideration to long-term implication. So pressure has a very strong negative impact on us. So what I posit to you all today is that there are three things we really need to be aware of in order to lead effectively under pressure. This is really the big deal here, right? Self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-control. If you can do these things, if you can build yourself up in these ways, right? This is what we had to do as hostage negotiators. This was the easiest way for us to, I don't want to say guarantee a positive outcome, but to ensure the likelihood of a positive outcome when navigating high pressure situations. It had nothing to do with the other person. And that's what I want you to really take away from this slide here. Conflict and high pressure almost always leads us to point fingers at other people and tell them what we expect from them, how they should show up, what they should say, they should listen to us, yada, yada, yada. But the truth of the matter is, if we draw a circle, step inside of that circle, and work on everything inside of that circle, our success outcomes increase exponentially when it comes to conflict and pressure management. So it's all about you, self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-control. So here's a tool to help build your self-awareness. I call it a kick analysis. Identifying behaviors and habits that you have when you feel yourself in a high pressure moment. You're like, oh my gosh, this is too much. And we're all there. In 2025, we're all navigating internal pressure, external pressure, no matter where you're at and where you're living right now. 2025 is a high pressure season for almost everybody across industry. And so one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to take some time to build your self-awareness by doing a kick analysis. So you can just build like a little matrix here. It's kind of like a modified Eisenhower box here, where you're going to ask yourself 4 questions. What are the behaviors that you want to keep doing under pressure? The things you're proud of, the things that are working. What are some behaviors that you're not yet doing that you know you should be doing under pressure that would help you show up better? Maybe there are some behaviors that you are currently doing, but you need to change the way you're doing it. And then there might be some things that you're doing that you need to absolutely stop doing altogether. You just got to kill it. It's not working for you. Okay. Kick analysis can help you identify the problematic behaviors you have under pressure. It can help you identify patterns. And when you can identify those patterns, you can disrupt those patterns and improve the likelihood of showing up in a way that you'll be proud of in future high pressure situations. So that's a kick analysis to build self-awareness. Okay. When we go to building self-confidence, here's what I'll leave you with. Confidence is not a place that we start from. It's a place we get to. And when it comes to navigating high pressure moments and conflict, difficulty, challenge, fear, risk, whatever those words are that make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, what I want you to understand is you likely have to start from courage, not confidence. You have to learn to do things scared. So if you have the courage to start and then commit to doing it consistently, committing to do something is not the same as committing to do it consistently. I can commit to working out, but if I only go once a year, that consistency is not going to give me results. So I want to have the courage to start. I want to commit to doing it, but I want to also do it consistently. And the more I do it, I'll build a competency. And with that competency, it no longer becomes the thing I do. It becomes a part of who I am. That's my character. And as my character grows into navigating difficulty and high pressure moments well, I'll become more comfortable in those situations. And that is where my confidence will come from. So this progression is what we need to be aware of. If you're looking for confidence to start, you're going to be looking for a very long time. When it comes to high pressure moments, you have to do it with courage. That's how we had to do it when we had courage under fire and law enforcement, but it's the same for you. It might not be a life or death moment, but it doesn't matter because in the brain, it feels the same. It feels just as risky. So we have to start from courage. The last piece here is building self-control. And one tool that I like to do for building your self-control is to use STOP, which basically stands for space, time, and an opportunity. OP is opportunity. One of the big challenges we have in high pressure moments is we are impulsive. We are reactive. We do the things that feel good, not the things that are good. We do things that make us feel better, not things that actually make us better. High pressure does that to us. It hijacks the amygdala. It causes us to act in a limbic response of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and we don't make informed decisions. Instead, what we do is we make decisions, and later we sit back and say, "Why did I do that? It's not exactly what I was hoping to do. I know better." And then we have feelings like regret or um, guilt that can follow. And so, what we can do instead is give ourselves space, time, and an opportunity to reset, to de-escalate, to get out of a limbic mindset, get out of that reactionary mindset, come up with a plan and a strategy to re-engage with our high pressure situation as quickly as possible. And here's the illusion here. I'm not saying this is 5 years. You don't have to take a 5-year break. Sometimes a 30-second break to give yourself space, time, and an opportunity to reset, to think before you speak, that can be enough to start the process of de-escalating yourself. If you need 5 minutes, take 5 minutes. If you need a day, and say, "Hey, can we circle back tomorrow at 8 o'clock?" Whatever the thing is, understanding that your ability to demonstrate some immediate opposite action. I want to yell and scream, instead I'm going to be quiet. I want to blame and point a finger, instead I'm going to look inward. Right? Those immediate opposite actions only take place if you give yourself space, time, and an opportunity to reset before you re-engage. And that can be a great self-control tool for you. All of this comes from a model I created on conflict competency called the real tact model. And the idea behind the real tact model is that there are 3 pillars and 8 issues. The name of my company is Conflictish. All the ish that you do that contributes to conflict, tension, and misunderstanding, foolishness, childish, diminished productivity, all that ish. We're all full of some kind of ish, usually foolishness and childishness, but there's a lot of other ish out there. Well, on the front end, right, navigating the 8 issues requires you to have balance in these 3 key pillars: self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-control. And if you have too little, too much of either of these, you have problems. Too little self-awareness, you're blind as a leader. Too little self-confidence, you're insecure. Too little self-control, you're unpredictable. Right? But you can also have too much self-awareness. You become detached from other people. You become so focused on yourself that you can't see them. Too much confidence, we know what that is. That's arrogance. Too much self-control, you're rigid. You don't move. So we want to go to this place where there's balance in all of these pillars, where we can be aware, humble, and measured. And if we can do that, we can navigate high pressure moments extraordinarily well. Okay. And here's the bottom line for you guys. I know I raced through all of this content, but here's the thing. I want you to refocus the question. If you remember, I started our conversation by saying, how are you most likely going to hurt or harm someone in your care? Let's reframe and refocus that question. How are you most likely going to help someone in your care? Right? Here's what you have to understand. Someone is watching you. They're watching you as a leader, how you carry your weight, how you respond when you're misunderstood, how you lead through disappointment, and how you recover from setbacks. And for someone else, your perseverance becomes their permission and your composure is their compass We already know that your healing becomes someone else's hope. Your success as a leader navigating high pressure moments gives someone else the inspiration and the motivation they need to potentially do the same. That's why this matters, because there are people who are following you. They're following your lead, whether you want to or not. And listen, this isn't just workplace leadership, guys. We lead at home. Our kids are watching. Our spouses are watching. Our family and friends are watching. Our church members are watching, right? People are watching you. And so, how are you going to most likely help those in your care? That is the question I want you to consider after our session today. For those of you who are saying to yourself, man, I think I have this. I'm pretty good at this. And I want to help more people. I'm going to circle back to the leadership coaching certification program, right? You're someone who could be deployed as a coach, as a mentor, as someone who can help other people instead of harm them. And so what I'm going to do real quick here is I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Marcia King, really briefly so that she can say a couple of words about the program. And then if we've got time, I'm more than happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. That was awesome. And this is just one of many topics that if you choose to look into the leadership coaching program to become a certified coach, you would learn this, not just for yourself, but also this in coaching other people, like Ryan just mentioned. So we do have a leadership coaching program. A lot of people call it executive coaching. And our next cohort is starting in September, into September. If you are interested, the flyer was, thank you, Celine, the flyer was put into the chat. Take a look at that. But just in a nutshell, I will tell you, this is a phenomenal program. And the types of people that come to this program are people who work internally to organizations who want to become better leaders, better managers, better people. The second group that comes to this program are people who want to become full-time coaches like Ryan and I, that we do this for a living and we help clients. There's also another group of people who run leadership development type programs and initiatives within an organization. They want to become better at understanding what coaching is. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of the details, but I could talk on and on about it. So if you have any interest in learning more about this, my contact details are on that flyer. Save the flyer, take a look at it, and connect with me, and I'll schedule some one-on-one time. We do have another open house coming up on July 8th. And if you're interested, let me know, and I will make sure that you get the invite to that. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Marcia, so much. And Celine, I'm going to pass it over to you. For anyone who's watching, if you're interested, I want to just kind of throw this out there real quick. I recently wrote a new book called How to Untie a Balloon, a negotiator's guide to avoid popping under pressure. Everything that we talked about today at some level or another is in the book. And so if you scan that QR code and tell me how I did today, you'll also, at the very end of your survey, you'll be able to download a preview of the book. You get the first few chapters for free. So before you spend money and go to Amazon, you can download some chapters of the book there, my gift to you. So that's all I've got. I'm going to stop the screen share and turn it over to my friend Celine.
Thank you, Ryan. I think we have time for just one quick question if you're willing to take it.
Throw it at me.
This is from our friend Robert, and he said, I have two coworkers who have high conflict with each other. What's one first step I could take to intervene?
Oh gosh, it's so hard because we're talking about mediation, and without understanding the source of the conflict, we have to pause. And so I would say anytime you're navigating a problem, when we approach it and say, I want to help solve a problem, make sure we can define the problem. What problem are we solving? So I would sit down with those two coworkers, perhaps separately, and I would ask them, what would you say the problem is? And then ask the other person, what would you say the problem is? And see if there's alignment on what the issue is. And most oftentimes there's not. Bring them into alignment, help them find an outcome that sounds good for both of them separately before bringing them together, and see if that helps.
Ryan, I know we could talk about this all day. You're incredible. We're so grateful to have you as a friend of CLOE. So thank you for today's session. And to wrap us up, I am thrilled that we will have Marcia King back. So Marcia King will be back on Monday, July 7th at 12 p.m. Join us back on Zoom, and we're going to be talking about what is coaching and how can we use it in our jobs. So she's going to come with some really tactical advice. It's going to be really helpful to you. You can sign up for that session by clicking by clicking this link. So you can actually scan this bit.ly right here on the screen, and it's available for you to join us. So thanks again for joining our session today. Thank you again to Ryan for being an incredible host for us and giving us such incredible information in just 25 minutes. But we hope you enjoy the rest of your summer. Happy June, everybody. And thanks so much. We'll see you again.